So I recently got a message on Facebook from someone looking at purchasing a brand new unit or possibly a used unit. And the message was really regarding side imaging, kind of what they're supposed to be looking for, both on the new marketplace and on secondary markets like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, any type of used unit, what you should be looking for. So in today's video, I'm going to be walking through, first of all, what is side imaging and why it's incredibly useful, even if you can pick up an older unit that has, basic side imaging settings. Also, I'm going to break down the specs that you should be looking for both brand new units and used units from, all the way back to 10 years old. And then hopefully give you some good options as far as what you can look for on either Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. If you're looking for a used unit, I'll give you some models you can probably check out that I personally think are a pretty good bang for your buck, and also give you kind of the price point to look for, as well as brand new units that have come out in the past year or so, and then the price point you should be expecting for those brand new units. We're in fall right now. It's the first weekend in September, and Black Friday sales are just around the corner. I haven't heard anything just yet, but I know a lot of these companies typically knock off like 20-30% as we get into like late October into November here. So if you're in the marketplace for a new unit with side imaging, I'm going to give you some examples of what I think would probably be a pretty good deal and where I think you can find some pretty good deals. So first, let's just talk about what is side imaging. So what is side imaging? Well, side imaging is a frequency that's emitted like a beam, both left and right of the boat. It also includes the down imaging function, which on my screen here is the black area of your screen. So if you're familiar with kind of the generalized 2D sonar and down imaging, side imaging is just kind of an expansion of that down imaging. It's a narrow beam, unlike 2D sonar that uses a cone, that emits a cone from that transducer. It uses a narrow beam both left and right of the boat. Same thing with down imaging. It's a narrow beam. And you can extend the range on your screen by adjusting your settings left and right of the boat. Here I have 70 feet left and right. That's where I'm looking. I'm just kind of trolling down a river's bank here, and there's a lot of timber laying down, some schools of bait fish, as you can see. But side imaging uses typically 3 different frequencies. Older models of, doesn't matter the brand, Humminbird, Lowrance, Garmin, typically used 455 kilohertz, which was I'm going to call it the widest, it's the slowest bandwidth of frequency. So it's a slow wavelength compared to the megahertz that are on our newer units, but it's going to give you kind of the widest image left and right. So, I shouldn't say left and right, I should say up and down. So if this is the boat, and you got your transducer right here, and it's going to send out frequencies at a specific angle. Let me get back in the shadow so you can see what I'm talking about here. So here's your angle that the frequency is emitting. At 455, you're like this. You're basically seeing almost pretty much to the top of the water column, left and right of your boat. You can see fish like 6 inches below the surface of the water. As you go up in frequency, typically the next setting is like 800 kilohertz to maybe 850 kilohertz. That kind of drops down just a little bit, not much, just a little bit. And then what I'm running here is 1.07. A lot of times it's like 1.1 to 1.2 megahertz is your Ultra HD or your mega imaging that a lot of people run. And so you got your 455, you got your 800, and then you got your mega imaging, we'll call it. Mega imaging is typically going to give you a crisper picture. And that's because it's taking in, a simple way to say it is, it's taking in less data and still displaying on the same screen size. So, and this works kind of the same way with 2D sonar or down imaging. With 2D sonar, if you have your auto settings and you're in 50 feet of water, it's trying to cram 50 feet of water column of all that data into your screen. But if you shrink your screen to, let's say, I only want to see 30 feet or 25 feet of that water column, it's going to be able to give more pixels to a given area of water. So I think a simple way of viewing it for the average angler when it comes to side imaging is, as you go up in frequency, you're going to get a better clarity, but that's because it's typically viewing less of the water column up and down. Now that's not left and right. I know that might be a little bit confusing, but it's like you're missing the first 6 inches of the water column, let's say, when you're using mega imaging versus 455 kilohertz. Now, it really isn't that much. It's not enough to justify saying that 455 you should always use all the time, or mega imaging you should always use all the time. There's different scenarios that both of them work pretty well. And you'll still be able to see fish really close to the surface with mega imaging. So I'm not saying that. I just want you to kind of understand the difference between your 455, your 800, and your mega. It's really a small amount, and to the average anglers, you're probably not going to notice much of a difference. The only thing you're going to notice when it comes to 455 kilohertz is the clarity will not be as good as when you're running megahertz frequency. So some of your older models, which I'm going to talk about here, of kind of what specs to look for on the used marketplace for models that were probably built more than 5 to 6 years ago, typically only have 455 kilohertz as their side imaging frequency setting. So those images are not going to be as crisp as some of your newer models, but they're still going to be good enough for you to find brush piles, rock piles, schools of fish, schools of crappie, whatever you're chasing. So now let's talk about the specs. So that's kind of a general idea of like what side imaging is. It's a thin beam that shoots left and right of the boat. It also includes your down imaging function, so you can see the black. It looks like the black area on the center part of your screen. That's the same thing as this this down view mode. It's just putting it horizontally rather than vertically on your screen. That's the only difference. But being able to see left and right of the boat has huge advantages when it comes to looking for brush piles, rock piles, weed lines, and just big schools of fish just roaming out in the middle of nowhere. When it comes to the specs that you should be looking at on both used and new units, I think there's two you should focus on. One is the screen resolution. So screen resolution is just as important as having a high quality transducer, a transducer that can emit a bunch of different ranges of frequencies when it comes to side imaging. Screen quality, this unit that I have here arguably is top of the line unless you really want to spend $5,000–6,000. This is the GPS map 8610 XSV by Garmin. It is a 1920 by 1200 pixels. So it's pretty darn good. The 12-inch model is actually only a full HD, which is 1920 by 1080. If you can get into that quality of a screen, regardless of the brand, this is a Garmin, but if you got a Humminbird, a Lowrance, Simrad, Raymarine, whatever you're looking at, if you can afford a 1920 by 1080 screen quality, I would highly recommend it because it's going to give you a really good picture. It's not the end of the world. I know I started off with a Humminbird Helix 9 that I think had like a 720p. It was like 720 by 480 or something like that. And I was still able to find brush piles, rock piles, still find schools of fish with it. So it's not the end of the world, but if you're looking at something used or new, screen quality is pretty important depending on the price point and what you're willing to spend. The next is obviously the frequency setting. So if the unit is probably older than 6 years old, so 2000, I'm gonna say like 2000, well, what are we here? Probably a little bit older than that. So 2018, right around there. Humminbird had started to come out with their mega imaging and their Gen 2 units. They might have had their Gen 3 units at that time. Garmin had just came out with their EchoMap Plus version, which I think had side imaging, their Ultra HD, and I think Lowrance had their HDS series at that time. So anything older than about 2018, you're typically only going to find a side imaging unit that has 455 kilohertz or maybe 800 kilohertz. It's not the end of the world. Those units, they're probably pretty inexpensive right now on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. You can still, again, find brush piles, rock piles, schools of fish with them. You got to play around with the settings and kind of tweak them a little bit. And the screen quality on those units typically are going to be like 720p screen quality. So in that price point, I would say they shouldn't be more than $500 in my opinion. You're probably looking at, if it's a 7-inch screen like a Garmin EchoMap 7.3 SV, you're probably looking at like $350, $400. If you're looking maybe a little bit more expensive, $500 to $700 range, your 10-inch units, your Humminbird Helix models like your G2s and your G3s, you might be able to find them in that $500 to $700 range, in that 9-inch screen maybe, 9 to 10-inch screen. So that's kind of the price point I'm looking for the lower screen quality functions, or the lower screen quality resolution, and maybe not the highest frequency functions like a mega imaging or a Ultra HD imaging like I got here. So those are the two things I would look for on the used marketplace when it comes to buying kind of the best quality you can for the least amount of money. So screen resolution and the transducer that you're getting, the type of frequency it can emit. So when it comes to what you're looking for on the new side, pretty much every single unit that I would say that's over $700 has a megahertz frequency side imaging function at this point. I know the Garmin EchoMap 73 SVs, the 93 SVs, those EchoMap series, they use a 1.1 megahertz frequency for their side view. And it's got the 800 and 455 as well if you wanted to use those. But the Helix, not the Helix, the Humminbird, I think the Humminbird Explorer is the new one. I think it's a little bit more than 700 bucks. I think that's like 1200. That obviously has their megahertz frequency or their mega imaging. And then the Lowrance HDS Live series has their, I can't remember what they call it, but it's the megahertz frequency that they use. Those units are probably all somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 bucks. Black Friday sales, I would look for those units between $700 to $900 on a lot of them, specifically the Garmin's. I'll leave links to some places that I think you can get some really good deals on getting into the later part of October and into November. So if you're in the marketplace for a brand new unit, wait it out a couple months from when I'm posting this video. End of October into November, Black Friday deals, typically you can save a lot of money. So that's what I look for on the new side. Screen quality, obviously, a lot of these newer models, they have really good screen quality. So that's what I look for on the new side of two different things, screen resolution and transducer functionality. So units I would look for on the used marketplace, specifically going into the fall, that I think you can get a really good deal on. I kind of already talked about them. The Garmin EchoMap 93 SV or the 73 SV, the Gen 1, I know I'm throwing out a lot of terms here, but the Gen 1 UHD, which is ultra high definition, those units you can probably pick up for under 700 bucks right now on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Garmin sold a ton of them over the past like 5 years, so people are looking to upgrade to maybe a little bit better screen quality on their Gen 2 units that they came out with. But still the screen quality on the Gen 1s is really good. I had 3 of them on my old boat for many years and they work great. The other thing I would look for is the Humminbird Helix lineup. Humminbird is discontinuing the Humminbird Helix lineup. They came out with the Humminbird Explorer that's going to replace all of that. So look for, not just this fall, but in years to come, the Gen 2s, the Gen 3s, and even the Humminbird Helix Gen 4s. Those are going to be sold at a pretty good discount. As people that love Humminbird, they're going to upgrade to either the Apex, the Solix, or the new Explorer units. So I would highly recommend looking at those Helix Gen 3s and Gen 4s, really good high quality units. And then Lowrance, you might be able to find Lowrance HDS Lives. I haven't found a ton of them in my area. I live in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I live in western Wisconsin, but I'm close enough to that area that there should be a lot available, and I haven't seen a ton. But you still should be able to find like a 7-inch HDS Live or even a 9-inch HDS Live Lowrance unit for probably under $1,000 on the used market. And again, really good screen quality, good transducer quality. So those are kind of the 3 groups of units I would really recommend looking for on the used marketplace. So to the person that messaged me on Facebook, I hope this answers your question of kind of what to look for when it comes to side imaging, what it is, the screen resolution and the quality of the transducer, and then different price points to look for both on the used marketplace and the brand new marketplace. October, November are coming up here as I'm filming this video, so Black Friday deals are going to come quick. So if you're in the marketplace for a new Sonar unit and transducer bundle, I highly recommend waiting a little bit from the time I post this video, because typically you can get like 20 to 30% off these units. If you got any questions about anything I talked about in the video, post them in the comment section below. If you got any ideas of new Sonar topics that you want to discuss in future YouTube videos, let me know in the comment section as well. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.